right, welcome to History Chats. Yeah, welcome. We are going to get started here in just a second. We're going to be taking a bit of a virtual walking tour today, but while we're before we get into it, just to let you know, if you're not already aware, we have a maybe different type of walking tour this weekend. If you're watching this the day we're live or shortly thereafter, on May 22nd, this Sunday, we'll be having our May walk tour event. So that'll be the theme this year is going to be law and disorder, kind of going through some of the interesting places of justice and crime, 7 different places across the downtown area. So more information here if you we have a Facebook event and it's on our website and all of that fun stuff. If you want to know more, maybe we'll see you there. And one of the people who you might see at that is going to be Gary, and he's going to be taking us on a presumably, I don't know if there's how much overlap. We'll find out if there's any overlap with this weekend, but he's going to be doing a different one. So I'm just going to turn over the microphone and let you take it from here, Gary.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, whenever you're watching this. Historic Preservation Month.
Hey, hold on just a second. Is the light blinking?
It's on, steady red.
All right, bear with us for a second here. I guess we unplugged the microphone and it's not registering. This one? Nope, that's okay, good. Shoot. Okay, it's not working. So, what do we do about that? All right, having some technical difficulties with the microphone. I'm just going to have to unplug this and let's see if it works again here. Unplug, plug it back in. It should be plugged in. Hopefully I don't have to restart my program because that would end the stream. Oh, duh, that's why it's, okay. You should be good now. Sorry about that. Carry on.
So am I good?
Yep, it's
Okay.
coming through now.
Can you hear me now? So, as I was saying, this is National Historic Preservation Month, May of 2023. So we thought we would sort of bring this into one of our programs this month as part of History Chats. So what we're going to do today is give you a little bit of a virtual tour. Usually I don't do a virtual tour. We're out there walking the streets of the city of Wausau or wherever, showing off historic cultural landmarks. But one of the things with regard to a virtual tour is that we can bring some of the things that are no longer here into the program. So you can see some things that are gone, but yet some of the things that are still here amongst us. So I think we have the best of both worlds with a little bit of a virtual tour. So understanding that a usual walking tour would maybe be an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the length of the tour. So today we have 15 or 20 minutes. So I'll try to condense as much as I can into some landmarks that are kind of cool in our central city, showcasing some of the maybe some of the long gone buildings, but of course some of the current things that we have here in Wausau Center City. But just before we go too much, we have been doing walking tours for a while. This is a walking tour back in 1976, and with regard to the bicentennial of the United States, a little brochure that was produced by the Historical Society. So we've been always doing that. So it's uncanny how a walking tour many years ago is sort of the same type of walking tour that we're going today. The same landmarks, the same points of interest from our history are still there, or maybe they're gone, but this little brochure, this little booklet told a lot more, and we have this little booklet here at the Historical Society. Not for sale, it's in the library. But in conjunction with that, the Historical Society has always published a variety of different guides to Wausau's historic architecture. One of those is this City in the Pinery that talks a little bit about the variety of places that are historically significant. But before I go too much further, I want to show this. This is 3rd Street in downtown Wausau, maybe in one of our bargain days or whatever. But it shows what I would refer to as one of the larger eras in downtown history here in Wausau. What we were about. Some places that here are recognizable. But we'll talk a little bit about those. So for today, as with that other tour booklet, where do we start? We start on the corner of usually 4th and McIndoe, and then come down 4th, and then we head over to 3rd Street. So that's sort of what we're going to be doing today. A little bit, not extensive, but a little bit of highlights here and there. But first of all, we'll start here where all walking tours usually start, at the Historical Society at the Yawkey House. And this is just a little bit of an idea of what we start with when we start a walking tour with regard to the Cyrus and Alice Yawkey House, their whole estate here, their gardens, the whole history of them being here on this piece of property is important, and that's why we usually start our tours here. The gardens are very lush this time of the year, and we try to point that out. The gardens are a very important part of the history of this house. I point out the National Historic District. We are now in the Andrew Warren Historic District on the part of the National Register. And then across the street, of course, from the Yawkey House is the Woodson House, the home of the Marathon County Historical Society, where we are today. The A.P. and Lee Woodson House, Lee, of course, being the daughter of Cyrus and Alice Yawkey. Again, another wonderful prairie school house, and a lot of history, of course, associated with this house. The architecture, the people who live there, just an incredible amount of history with regard to that house. But let's walk up 3rd Street. So when we start to talk about the landmarks of the city, we maybe not associate some of the more current buildings. This building, which was originally the home of the Prangy department store, it's still here in the 700 block of 3rd Street, across from the YMCA. But again, a very important part, because in the new era of the history of downtown Wausau, in addition to the Winkleman's department stores, Prangy sort of brought a new dimension, moving the downtown into the northern part of Wausau, past Grand Street, into a new era of the city of Wausau, when Prangy's decided to build their department store here. It's an important, continues to be an important landmark in our history. It's still there, a variety of offices today, but it was at one time the department store, a very popular place in downtown Wausau. Moving up 3rd Street, we come to the 600 block, and these buildings are still here. When I come down 3rd Street, point to the second floors of these buildings, I point out to the great variety of architecture. Of course, these are some second floor, some Tudor style buildings. But of course, these buildings go back to the 1890s. So a lot of a variety of stores, movie houses, bakeries, candy stores, a variety of things were always going on the first floor first floor of these buildings. Second floors usually had apartments or other types of businesses, but at one time, Rilling's Electric was here, Berger's Gifts was next door, so a variety of different stores. But a true indicator, this block is really a true indicator of what downtown Wausau, what it was like for over 100 years, and it continues to be a landmark, the whole block really, a whole landmark in the history of this city, culturally, architecturally, and the people who lived in these businesses throughout the years. Coming on down 3rd Street, of course, then we come to a building that is no longer here, but what the First American National Bank on the corner of 3rd and Scott, a domineering building. Really, it was an incredible building built in the 1920s. Basically, like you see across the street from the hotel. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But again, this bank building was really a cultural center because many people, even today, remember it at Christmas time when choirs would come from a variety of schools, come to the bank and sing Christmas carols. It was really a cultural event that a lot of students in a variety of schools throughout the city would look forward to every Christmas because that was always a way of getting out of school, but also usually a little bit of treat or something would be waiting for them at the First American National Bank building. Sort of a building that still continues to bring back a lot of memories for a lot of people in this day. So again, 3rd and Scott. So another starting off place for our tours is usually what we now know as the 400 block, this park. And we'll talk a little bit about this, but as you can see, there's a lot of history. This is the Grand Theater ticket office. Moving on to the Grand Theater itself, the history, the architecture of the buildings that surround the 400 block is really incredible. The Grand Theater, then moving across the 400 block, the Shepherd and Shadow building. These buildings, of course, have been here for over 100 years, and an incredible part of downtown Wausau. And then, of course, when we come back to 3rd Street, again, we can see a side view of the Landmark Apartments, what used to be the hotel, and a variety of other businesses on the 400 block of 3rd Street, including the Mint, and a variety of other businesses. And it takes too long really to talk about these individual buildings, but you sort of get a sense that these buildings also are part of our landmarks. And that's why the city of Wausau has a downtown historic district that includes a lot of these buildings as contributing to that district. But back in the 400 block, and we cannot go much further without talking about the old Richardson Romanesque courthouse that was built in the 1890s, tore down in the 1950s. Again, a building that just in this day and age would dominate our downtown. But like I said, it was raised. It stood out. It was an incredible center of the city. You can see the World War I monument at the bottom of the picture. But again, it was just sort of an incredible building for this city. And again, a lot of preservationists in the city really regret the loss of this classic building in downtown Wausau. But what came after that was some retail shops on the 400 block, Kresge's, Three Sisters, Kinney Shoes, J.C. Penney, 4 stores, 4 retail stores that came onto the 400 block. And of course, these are all gone now. These have been replaced by what we now know as the 400 block on 3rd Street. Again, sort of not only as being there, but it was a cultural, I refer to this really as a cultural institution, because it was really the center of people gathering in downtown Wausau. So if you would come to downtown Wausau, you would gather and have coffee or a donut at the Kresge's lunch counter, maybe Woolworth's. It was just really the center of the city that people would come to and to be a part of sort of that way back when era in downtown Wausau. Of course, what we showed you, the Grand Theater, we cannot talk about downtown without talking about the Grand Theater, built in the 1920s early on as the vaudeville, then as the productions and of movies, and now the performing arts, of course. The great neoclassical building still dominates. Now this building dominates the center of the city, and the 2 other buildings on both sides of it that really contribute to the great architecture that surrounds the 400 block. Moving down a little bit on 3rd Street, Kinney Corner from Kresge's was the old Woolworths. Again, another something similar to Kresge's, but again, another center, 5 and dime store that was really a big part of downtown Wausau. And then across the street from Woolworths on 3rd Street is again another building that we regret losing, the First National Bank building. Again, the picture on your left is with the tower, and then eventually through the years the tower got taken off, and the picture on your right is sort of the way it looked just about when it was ready to be raised and to make way for the current building on 3rd Street. Coming further on down on 3rd Street, I'm sort of moving into some of the areas that the mall came into, but I don't really want to make much of an effort to talk about that era, but I have to talk just a few landmarks, because this was a building on 3rd Street in the 200 block. Note the unique architecture, especially on the 2nd floor. This little bit of Italianate architecture, I think, but again, the home at one time of Chips and a variety of other stores. This is one of my favorite buildings, really, that was lost to the mall. This is another building that was lost to the mall. This was on the corner of 3rd and Washington, home of the Wausau Pilot. At one time or another, this may have been where people may have bought their first record, their first album, maybe a Bruce Springsteen or Beatles or whatever. But this was the home to a variety of record stores through the years. And in addition to in earlier years when it was the home of the Wausau Pilot, a newspaper, you can see in the window that there was a dentist also on the second floor. So a lot of history, in addition to the unique architecture of this building, was lost when we raised it and built the mall. Down the street is another unique architectural wonder, the old Lakewood Sporting Goods on the corner of 3rd and Jackson Street. The Eagles had their second floor meeting hall. So again, another unique building. One of the things, like I said before, one of the things that we really can't point out in this day and age when we do a walking tour is some of the things that were there. And this is one of the things with a virtual tour, you can sort of say, yeah, this was also in downtown Wausau. Not necessarily associated with the mall, but we also like to point out the old City Hall, which at the end of 3rd Street, built around 1912, 1913. Eventually, the City Hall would move to the current facility on Grant Street. But this was here, currently the post office is in this site. But again, a unique, I think really a quite nice and distinguished city hall for our city at that time, quite distinguished at the end of our main, really at the end of our main street. This was a picture of an earlier city hall that earlier picture replaced. This was on Washington Street, but just in context of this was an earlier city hall. I can't leave downtown or the center city of the city, the center part of the city, without talking a little bit about the churches, because if you come into downtown Wausau, you're going to see a lot of churches, and the churches, I think, say a lot about our history. I can't go into all of this right now, but the unique history of church of now the Church of the Resurrection. In earlier life, the St. James Catholic Church, designed by Anton Doman, built around 1910, 1911, certainly does grace downtown Wausau. Of course, Ben mentioned before the tour on Sunday. So if by chance, if you're coming to the tour that it's going to be happening this Sunday, parts of the tour will be including in the Federal Building on First Street. This was built in the 1930s as a post office with a federal court on the second floor, and a lot of history happened on that second floor. And if you come on Sunday, you'll hear a lot about that history. But this building was designed by Irving Obel, and as a post office. Great Garrett Sinclair mural on the first floor. As you come in, you'll see that on Sunday. So again, a lot of history here on this Federal Building on First Street. Returning again to some churches, St. John's Episcopal Church on McClellan, again, over 150 years and maybe closing in on 160 years of this congregation being in downtown Wausau. Again, a little English tutor. First Presbyterian, again, the same types of longevity in this city. The congregation is, I would say, again, closing in on 160 years. This building, built in 1927, across the street from the current City Hall. Again, this is we saw this a little bit earlier, the Hotel Wausau, now currently called the Landmark Building, established in the 1920s by Walter Schrader when he built this hotel here in Wausau, which was and continues to be really, again, dominates the architecture of downtown Wausau. Just my title includes this, the Stewart House, the Hiram Stewart House on Grant Street. Again, another great prairie school designed by George Mayer, really, and pretty much of all the houses, especially the prairie school, this has been maintained and continues to portray that early era of prairie school architecture, and the interior certainly does demonstrate that throughout the years, the interior has been preserved beyond dreams, really, and the current owners continue to honor that great history of this building. Again, another. This is on the corner of 6th and McIndoe. A great example of an Italianate house in Wausau. And this is Queen Anne, designed by William LaSalle, on the corner of 5th Street and Franklin Street. Again, some houses that we would have part of our walking tour, but yet there's more stories here with them, but I just wanted to point them out as part of our history and landmarks of the center city. And I cannot leave downtown Wausau without pointing out this memorial bridge going from the Scott Street, really, over the East Branch of the Wisconsin River to Clark's Island. This is the Memorial Bridge, built in 1928, and the unique architecture itself of the railings is quite unique. When this was taken down, a little bit of it was preserved, and we're trying to preserve that evidence of what this bridge was like. But it was quite a landmark, quite distinguished bridge in our center city. And talking about cultural landmarks, one of those, I don't think we can talk about the center city without talking a little bit about some of the taverns and entertainment places that graced downtown Wausau. Scott Street Steak and Pub, I believe, was one of those on Scott Street. It was, of course, this block was torn down to make way for a parking lot. But again, one of those places that demonstrated the great entertainment part of what downtown Wausau was like. I'm going to switch a little bit. I'm going to take us a little bit further. I just want to briefly give you a little bit of a glimpse of the green spot. This is on Forest Street, leading into Grand Avenue. And in the walking tours, we start really at the courthouse. We start with the World War I monument, again, being built after World War I as a tribute to the soldiers who died in Europe during World War I. Quite a unique, and I don't think we pay much attention to that this is actually on the courthouse, this great monument to the soldiers. And of course, we have the courthouse, built in the 1950s, this newer courthouse, one that replaced the 400 block courthouse, looking down Grand Avenue. So we start with this, this is, and if you're going to be a part of the tour on Sunday, I think I know that you will have an opportunity to witness some court proceedings here in this courthouse. Just marching down a little bit Grand Avenue, just sort of continuing a little bit of a walking tour. The Ringel House, as you start the walking tour Grand Avenue. I'm just going to highlight a few buildings here as we go down Grand Avenue, because Grand Avenue in itself is becoming sort of an historic area. I continue wanting to point out this Grand Avenue and some of the sites along Grand Avenue that really point to our history in Wausau. This was the Grand Avenue approaching downtown Wausau. This is how people came into the city, and the building and some of the buildings on this street certainly should capture our imagination, as does St. Mary's Catholic Church on Grand Avenue. Hammond Park, built in the 1920s, again on the corner of Thomas Street and Grand Avenue. Quite a sight. The band shell, quite a unique recreation spot here on Grand Avenue. Quite historic. And it has a history unto itself. So if you have a chance to take this park in, please do. Moving down Grand Avenue, there's lots of history on Grand Avenue. One of those is the Judge Miller House. There's another fine example of a Queen Anne down on Grand Avenue, one of the grand houses, really, that still exist on Grand Avenue. Then further on down, we have the 1920 Memorial Hospital. Again, a history of medicine in Wausau has to include the development of Memorial Hospital as an important part of medical care in this city. So Grand Avenue, I just want to say that Grand Avenue does carry on. We have a lot of other sites, but what I tried to do today is to bring a little bit of a sense of what we have today as what we have in the past, because on walking tours, you can't present that past look as much as you can the current look of what buildings we have today. So walking tours continue. They usually are a little longer than this, but a virtual tour gives us an opportunity to highlight some of the buildings that have gone away. But of course, we're also highlighting some of the things that we still have and some of the buildings that we still treasure, highlight, and point out in our walking tours. So with that, I hope you enjoyed it. You know, we have walking tours continue this summer. The Friends of the Wausau Historic Landmarks does some walking tours, so check out their Facebook page as the summer proceeds. So you may be seeing some of these same things, same buildings in future walking tours of the city of Wausau. So with that, I turn it back to Ben.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, awesome. So there you go. There's a one walking tour that you could do, and if anybody wants to go and walk it yourself, you can see what's different. Not quite the same as having Gary there with you, but you can pull up on the recording on the phone. The recordings are always available. If you really want to get out there and enjoy the weather, if you can't, come this weekend, which again, we have the walking tour of the Law and Disorder, which is going to be some fun stories there. So next week, we're going to round out. It started out as kind of like a vaguely recognizing this month, Historic Preservation Month. As Gary mentioned at the beginning here, it's what we are. May is that. So we're going to round it out with a guest presenter, Brenna Welch, who's going to be coming back. She did a program a few months ago for us, and she's going to be talking just a little bit about one of the most important pieces of legislation and structure within the historic preservation movement, the National Register of Historic Places. So that'll round out the month here for us at History Chats. Hopefully, if you're interested, you can come back and see us for that. Yeah, in the meantime, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Again, we'll be out around downtown Wausau this Sunday if you're looking to get out and, get some interesting stories about law and crime and stuff like that. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon or whenever you're watching this, and we'll see you next time.